Hey guys, this is Rob Lopicola, recovering sex addict. Today we're going to take a look at sex addiction. And is sex addiction a real addiction? And there seems to be quite a bit of controversy among psychiatrists and psychologists of whether or not sex addiction is a real addiction. Now, of course, if you Google sex addiction, tens of thousands of information comes up regarding sex addiction. And there are criteria that is to be met if you're a sex addict. And this is all over the internet. A lot of doctors believe that sex addiction is certainly an addiction, and it can be a debilitating addiction. It's an addiction that can tear apart your entire life. It can ruin families, relationships. It can take away careers. It can even take away your freedom, because some sex addicts will behave illegally with prostitutes or other sexual behaviors that could get them in legal trouble. So sex addiction, truly, if you go online and research and speak to a lot of psychologists, yes, it is an addiction. And an addiction basically is defined by the fact that once you start using, you can't stop, whether it's alcohol or drugs or gambling or certain foods or sexual behavior. Once you start, you're unable to stop. And these addictions, or these behavioral addictions, destroy lives. Sex addiction is debilitating. And the consequences of those behaviors may be many, but some of them for sure are inferiority, insecure, self-loathing, despair, self-hatred, suicidal thoughts, and there are those, up to 17% of sex addicts attempt suicide, and over 70% think about it. So is sex addiction a real addiction? And again, there seems to be some controversy. And we're going to take a look at that controversy. And one of the psychiatrists that disagree that sex addiction is certainly an addiction is Dr. Phil. Let's take a look what Dr. Phil has to say.
Is sex addiction a thing, do you believe?
No.
You don't think so?
No, I don't. Now, I will say this. In the industry, there is a big debate about this, and there are a lot of professionals that I have great respect for that will argue that it is a thing. Now, the DSM-5, the American Psychiatric Association Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, doesn't have it in there. They don't recognize it. They don't consider it to be a disorder. A lot of people I respect do. I'm not one of them. I think it's one of those things that when your wife catches you, you go, oh my God, devil made me do it. It's an addiction. Let the healing begin. I hate it when they say that. I don't think it's a thing. Now,
so it's just a form of selfishness.
It is, but I'm not saying that there's not pathology there, because I think in certainly cases like you're talking about here, there is severe pathology there. I just don't think it's a sexual addiction.
So one of the reasons Dr. Phil said they don't want to put it in the DSM is because they don't want husbands or wives to use it as a reason why they cheated on their spouse. Oh, the devil made me do it. I mean, I don't know what he's talking about, but the fact of the matter is a lot of guys that use drugs and women that use drugs and get caught and they go to court. Well, what do the courts do? A lot of times they'll say they're an addict and the court sends them off to 12-step meetings. Just because some people may use it to their advantage doesn't mean it's not a true addiction. Some men or women that get caught using drugs or selling drugs, they go to court, and then they're court ordered to go to 12-step meetings because they're drug addicted. Now, they might be. I'm not saying they're not. But some may use it to their advantage, and that's what Dr. Phil's pointing out. They don't want to put it in the DSM because maybe some people will use it as an excuse. Yes, some people will. Doesn't take away the fact that drug addiction is real and alcoholism is real, and some people may use sex addiction as an excuse for illegal behavior. But that doesn't mean sex addiction isn't real, and it certainly doesn't mean that maybe because they are addicted to sex, they did act compulsively and do something illegal that they wouldn't have done if they weren't addicted.
The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It's a reference book on mental health and brain-related conditions and disorders. Now, the American Psychiatric Association is responsible for writing and editing and reviewing and publishing this particular book. Now, it was proposed to include sex addiction into the DSM. However, the American Psychiatric Association rejected the proposal. Now, their reason was lack of evidence and the potential consequences of calling excessive sexual activity, as in sex addiction, a pathology, calling it a disease or a disorder. Now, the Journal of the American Academy of Psychiatry and the Law in Sexual Addiction as a Legal Defense, they said a primary reason for excluding the proposed diagnosis was concern for potential misuse in hypersexual disorder or sex addiction in the legal setting. Also, they stated, there is an ongoing controversy surrounding the validity of sex addiction. Finding universally accepted terminology and classification proves challenging. The first step to reaching an improved understanding of sexual addiction is to achieve a widely accepted definition of the condition. If that is established, new sound and consistent evidence may emerge, which could lead to more widespread acceptance of sexual addiction as a diagnostic entity. However, interestingly, the World Health Organization, the WHO, publishes the International Statistical Classification of Diseases and Related Health Problems to standardize the methods of recording and tracking instances of diagnosed disease all over the world. And according to the World Health Organization, yes, compulsive sexual behavior or sex addiction is a mental health disorder. And in a survey of 66 countries, psychiatrists agreed that the ICD is considered best for diagnosis, although they also agreed that the DMS benefited research.
So let's define sex addiction. Sex addiction refers to excessive sexual thoughts, desires or urges or behaviors that can't be controlled and cause distress and harm to your relationships, finances, and other aspects of your life. If you're struggling with sex addiction, it tends to destroy all areas of your life. And whether you keep trying to stop, you just simply cannot. You keep going back to those behaviors. Now, there are techniques and strategies you can use to experience sexual sobriety. I have over 11 years sober from sex addiction and drug and alcohol addiction as well. I'm multi-addicted, but I found sobriety, and there were techniques and skills and strategies that were needed to be used that offered me a chance to live life free from sex addiction, and it's available to you as well. Feel free to stay here on my channel. You can subscribe to my channel and hit that like button. I post a new video every Tuesday to teach you how to experience sexual sobriety, different strategies and techniques that you can start practicing to transform your life away from a life that's sex addicted to a life where you are free and experiencing sexual sobriety. But if you are struggling with sex addiction, it's probable or likely that you've tried stopping your sexual behaviors many times, and maybe you succeeded for short periods of time, but you kept going back to those behaviors over and over again, and you're experiencing a life where you are unfulfilled, unsatisfied, not reaching your potential because you're so mentally, physically, and spiritually exhausted acting out of those sexually addictive behaviors. If you are a sex addict, you are addicted to certain sexual behaviors. It's those behaviors that once you start, you can't stop. Once you get engrossed in those behaviors, it destroys every part of your life. The fact of the matter is, sex addiction is a real addiction. Those of us who are addicted to sex or other chemicals or behaviors, we understand. We stick together in recovery because only we can understand. And perhaps the drug addict still can't understand the sex addict, but the drug addict can understand addiction. So we, all of us addicts, can understand each other, help each other, support and encourage each other to get to the other side of addiction, where a life of sobriety is wonderful and thrilling and exciting and beautiful. There is another side for you to live if you're struggling with sex addiction or any addiction. There's another side. And I don't care what the DSM says. I don't care what the psychiatrist says. It is an addiction. I suffered from sex addiction for 3 decades. I was also methamphetamine addicted and alcohol addicted. I know the debilitating nature of addiction. I was a successful NBC weatherman, and I wound up homeless and bankrupt. And those of you who are addicted, it will destroy you. You know it. And there's a way out. I am so grateful that you spent this time with me today. And I would love you to go to my website. Listen, on my website, I have 2 things for you that are free that I would love you to do. 1, I'd love you to download my free ebook, 5 Phases of Recovery and Transformation from Sex Addiction. It is free. Download it. Oh, there's a wealth of knowledge in there. 5 phases you'll go through as you recover from sex addiction. And if you're not a sex addict and you happen to be watching this video, download it anyway. Just instead of sex addiction, put some other addiction in there. Food addiction, drug addiction, alcoholism. Just change the word. It's very similar. And also, I have a 10-step strategy session. It's free. It's a fast-paced video. It's 30 minutes long. Take a pad and a pen with you and take notes. It's a 10-step strategy session on how to break free from sex addiction. And if you want to keep recovering and transforming your life from one that is sex addicted to one of sobriety, subscribe to my channel. I post a new video every Tuesday. Hit the like button and the bell so you get notified every time I post a new video. And I am very happy that you spent this time here. And I look forward to seeing you again next time. You take care.